Hello, my name is Taylor Pettis, and welcome to today's presentation, SEO 201, how to increase your organic traffic. As we all know, Google is much more than a search engine. It's become synonymous for searching anything on the web. And we know people are using Google to find the information they need, and they're using it a lot. The question quickly becomes, will people find your content or your competitors the next time they Google? Today's presentation is designed to introduce you to SEO. And we'll get this from Andy Thomson, an SEO strategist at 3D Marketing. He's also a Moz blog contributor. But before I introduce him, I want to cover just a few housekeeping items. We hope the presentation will be both informative and interactive, and help make it interactive. Please share your comments and questions in the chat area of the webinar screen, and I'll do my best to help Andy answer your questions during the presentation, so keep them coming. The next item is we're recording today's webinar, and all of you will be emailed a copy following the event. So if you like what you see or want to share some of the cool new knowledge you learned with your connections, please feel free to do so. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Andy Thomson, SEO specialist at 3D Marketing, and I look forward to learning from him today, and hope you do as well.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to SEO 201. We are here to talk about the next stage of SEO work beyond the SEO 101 that we do periodically. My team has given this presentation, the SEO 101, a few times, and this is my first time giving SEO 201. So I'm a little nervous and excited to sort of share our content, knowledge, and practices with you guys today. So here are my and Taylor's smiling faces, and we can get into it. So with the whole picture of SEO, you have a lot of factors that go into it, and at 3D we like to use the metaphor of the SEO pyramid to show the whole picture of SEO, what goes into a project, what goes into succeeding in the world of online search. And in SEO 101, we covered the foundational elements. So that's a lot of technical and structural factors, including how can your website be more accessible by search engines, how it can be found more easily by your users and used more easily, and then how you can affect that by doing simple optimization techniques and doing some analysis on your own site. But with SEO 201, we're going to get into some more content-based things. So once your website is findable with the SEO 101 techniques, now we want you to learn how to put some things on the website for your users to find and find them more easily. So that's what SEO 201 is going to be about. So to break this down a little further, the optimization part of the pyramid breaks down content strategy and content marketing. So what this basic premise is that you will need data and creativity to succeed with content. So while this might seem a little strange for an SEO person to be telling you about this, but because you might think that SEO is just a bunch of keyword rankings or just optimizing one or a group of pages on your website, we really do a lot of content work. We really do a lot of research to help inform people who are writers or are designers or strategists for all of our clients' projects. Content strategy is at the base of the optimization group here, and that informs how you produce content to get your products and your services in front of the right people so that they can turn into customers down the line. So what is content? Well, content is a lot of things. It's basically anything that you might have on your website that is meant to attract visitors and engage them in your marketing funnel. So that could be an infographic, that could be a video, it could be informational, frequently asked questions, and it includes product pages, just simple things that that display the things you're actually selling. So there's a lot of different kinds of content, but you have to target your efforts in some ways. So that's what we're going to talk about. Is content worth the investment? Why, yes, it is. One of the reasons we perform SEO is because when you have a website and it becomes found by your users in organic search, you're getting traffic that would otherwise cost you money in paid search ads or any other kind of advertising. It's your goal to get as much traffic through organic channels and non-branded searches as possible, so that people who aren't aware of your brand can find your content in unrelated, in non-branded searches. So there's a lot of ways to sort of visualize this and see it in a dollars and cents way. And one is just simply looking at how much traffic is coming to your website and which keywords, try to track which keywords they're arriving to your website on, and then how much that traffic would cost if you were paying for that traffic with ads. So if you were ranking #1 or using an average bid on this website, Courageous, which is a Northwoods expedition company, they have 410 URLs indexed in Google, and one of our tools is showing us that they have 320 keywords ranking. That their overall, based on their positions with those keywords, their overall traffic is about 4.7 or 4,700 per month, and that would actually cost them about $2,000 every month. So you can make it, you can do the math for yourself, but that's a lot of money over the course of the year that they don't have to spend on paid search ads. They can focus their paid search budget on other, maybe more conversion-oriented things. So even down to a single page, you can monetize this in some way. You look at one page like this. This is just a weather page, an average weather temperature to help their this company's customers plan their trips, plan their Northwoods expeditions. So when they come to this page, they might find it on 12 keywords that are ranking for this one page, and that's 23 average monthly visits predicted by those positions, and that could cost $37. So dollars and cents in content marketing, that's what we try to get toward. So what you're going to learn today are a few different parts of this content marketing pyramid of the SEO pyramid: basic website organization, keyword research and application of keyword research, and then content marketing and promotion. So getting started. The website, you should think of it a little bit like biology: the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I remember there's an acronym for that from biology class, but it's a lot like a website because there's a hierarchy to organizing a website. It should be logical. It should have categories, and you should think of each page in your website as a piece of this hierarchy. So when you use it to describe a website, you can kind of see how that flips. The home page of your website is where every piece of content is accessible from. It should be every piece that every product page should be at the bottom of the hierarchy, and the navigation is designed to help users find their way logically and easily through your website to the content they're looking for. So there's navigational elements that are built to help guide users in different ways. And different websites approach this in different ways as well. Here's an example of the hierarchy on this Courageous website. You can see from the home page, represented by the logo, there's a primary navigation, and then they have a drop-down secondary navigation there, which guides the user to start looking for canoes if that's what they're interested in. Once they get there, there's a selection on the page, it looks like, and then they can choose the final product that they want to look at. Now, you don't necessarily need to go all the way into unique colors with an individual page, but you need to make a hierarchy that makes sense for your services and products. And when there's enough content to have a unique page, then you can build. So some other examples of navigations. We're going to stick in the camping industry throughout this presentation. So it's a nice theme. It's very organic. Feels very SEO-y to look into camping products and camping websites. So we're going to stick here and start with REI. So you can see their navigation, their home page has a lot of different options. They have, along the top, they have those tabs. They have about 7 tabs. We actually, when we do an SEO audit, we look at this type of thing, and we think of, when we look at a client's site, 7 primary navigational elements is actually the maximum we usually recommend to our clients. It's just been proven out in some user experience studies that that's something that's sort of a limit of people's attention. You probably want the most important pages on the top left, because that's where English speakers start to scan and read. And then if you have other elements that need to be represented, you can put them into secondary navigation, like REI has here with their shop section, to help people find pages further down. And then you can use the middle of the page to feature content, like most people do. Most websites have a large slider with different featured content that they're promoting at that particular time. We can look at a couple more examples. Back to this Paragis website, they have about 5 primary navigation elements, and you can see that they do a nice job of representing that. Though a few of those middle 3 have this little downward facing caret icon that represents that there's probably a drop down in that section. So they make it easier for their users to find the content by having a simple navigation that represents their hierarchy in a logical way. Now Joe's is another retailer. You can see that they have maybe a little bit more than recommended options on their primary navigation. Starting from the left to the right, they are only representing the categories of things that they're selling. So they're not necessarily promoting anything other than the things they're selling. And then they have their sale items at the far right. So that's the primary navigation. That's the only things they think are important. It could be that they're maybe doing a little bit too much, but they've decided to categorize their website in this way. And it's also, when we're talking about these different approaches, you can test things. You can test these things, see what works. If you want to try, if you think that adding a category for a specific product in your primary navigation is a good idea, you can test that and see what the effect is on your traffic. But we'll talk a little bit about testing later on too. So one of the important elements of the website hierarchy is that you have a URL structure that is logical and reflects that hierarchy as well. So a lot of websites will have URLs that for their web pages that are all directly in the secondary level. So let's say 3dmarketing.com/about. If we were doing it in a poor way, like let's say there's a page after about that within the hierarchy, that if you were doing it in a poor hierarchy, you might write 3dmarketing.com/about 3D's office or something like that. But that should live in a subcategory in a second level. So well, it should be /about/ the next page. And when you're writing these things and just coming up with them with your team, they should be readable. They should be easy to understand what page you're on. When you're looking at the URL, they should be concise. They should all be lowercase. And these are a couple other little items that are important when using or when thinking about duplicate content. You can use SEO files like robots.txt and a couple other things to make sure that search engines are indexing the page with the URL that is better than is the best practice, because if you end up with two URLs indexed with one with an uppercase letter and one with a lowercase letter of the same page, that'll split the potential for that page to be ranking in Google. So you want them to be referencing one single page, even when users are not necessarily going to use best practices when they're linking from other sites or when they're just typing in the page itself. So let's use these ideas in practice. Again, using Paragis as our example. So we start at Paragis.com. And then we want to get down to our canoe page. So we're going to add the category page. So they're selling canoes and kayaks on the same category page. So that's one sub level there. They're adding that between 2 backslashes. Then they add another one for the Winona category of canoes. And then they go to the model page. So that's the final page. And like I said, they don't necessarily, like, it looks like they have a little color swatch for maybe another color option, but they're not going to have that final color option as another page. They're just trying to keep it simple, make the navigation easy to use, and that's a very readable URL that they ended up with, so they did a good job. Another element of linking and website structure is internal linking. So you want to make sure that each of your pages has links to other related pages where it makes sense. You don't want to have too many links, but you do need to make each page linked to some other page, because if you don't, if no page is linking to one page on your site, Google might never find it and it might not be indexed. So these internal links help Google decide which pages on your site are more important than others, and it also helps users get to them as well. So this little map is an indication of how a website can be structured, with sort of a hub and spoke illustration. If you go over like that whole section on the right could be a blog, and the blog might be much different content. So it's sort of isolated over there on the right side with those 3 spokes, and then those individual spokes could be category pages or something like that. So you think about the hierarchy. When you actually visualize the sites on your page, or the pages on your site, it might look a little bit more like this than it does just looking like a simple animal kingdom diagram. But that's okay. That's what it's for. So another way to keep going with internal linking, some best practices are to link strategically. So if you have a category page such as camping and hiking, you might want to link to that in other parts of your site, not just in the primary navigation. So if you think that it's an important page for your site to get traffic from, you can use some strategic tactics to make sure that those pages are getting more attention than some other ones. It's also important to link consistently using the same URL scheme. So avoid using those uppercase letters, and don't use trailing slashes, or you have to kind of pick a theme and then go with it throughout your site, throughout all your linking efforts. So to wrap up basic website organization, these are a few of the things we covered: website hierarchy, the URL structure, and internal linking. So those are sort of the top of the website structure, sort of the end of the SEO 101 structure element of this presentation. Now we're going to dive into some more actual keyword research and content work here. So keyword research, you probably heard about this over the last couple of years. If you're working on content, it's important to do keyword research for your content to decide how to target creating new content, how to target new users. You can target geographically. You can use keyword research for all sorts of purposes. And because it's such a diverse subject, there are lots of tools you can use to help you out with this. You can go anywhere from Google Trends, which will just sort of tell you the general popularity of a phrase. The actual science that goes into that tool is a little bit ambiguous, but it is useful in some ways. So one of the most popular tools is Google AdWords Keyword Planner. While that is primarily used to help pay-per-click professionals plan their Google campaigns, it gives you a lot of information about the keyword volume per month, and you can target geographically as well, which is really helpful. So we're gonna go through that Google AdWords keyword research process to help you out if you're getting started. So the basics are you must have a Google account, and then we're just going to go in and to the Google AdWords tools section and use the keyword planner. So I'll show you how this works here. Once you're there, you need to click on the Find New Keywords. There's a bunch of sections on this page that serve different purposes. such as you can enter a keyword and it'll just give you a bunch of ideas, or you can enter a list of keywords from your subject matter and just see what the volume is there. So that's what we're going to sort of map out here for you. So you enter your keywords in this main search box, this your product or service. So if one thing I like to do when I'm doing keyword research is when I'm getting started is just sort of go through a website and have this AdWords tool open another tab. And so as you read through your website, like let's say we're on Parajas.com, like we were looking at before. So I'm going to write down a bunch of names of products, everything that I see on the page already. I'm gonna look at some key phrases that might be used, such as outdoor camping, and canoes and kayaks and sleeping bags and cold weather sleeping bags, and use these different modifiers that I can just think of as I'm reading through the website to help me relate and start thinking about the content on the site. And then I can even target it. So let's say if you're an international, you have an international user base, you can target other countries, or you can target in the United States, or you can target it even down to a city and a zip code using this tool. So while the volume is going to go down substantially if you target it, and it might not give you a bunch of information, it can be useful. So we'll show you a couple examples. As I mentioned, sleeping bags. If you type in sleeping bags, it will give you the average monthly searches. Of course, this number comes from the last 12 months of Google's data, and you can even download this and see the month-to-month traffic volume. So this is really helpful when you're planning out content for a subject matter that is seasonal. So it's likely that camping sleeping bags are searched more at one part of the year than another. So people are more likely to go camping in Minnesota, where we live, in the summer because it's warmer. So that volume probably goes down in the winter, but it's probably much higher in the early months or the spring months of the year, something like that. So these are things to consider. Now, a couple other pieces on this page to look at it are competition and suggested bid. So the suggested bid is actually the average bid that Google estimates it would take to rank highly for this keyword if you were using a paid ad. This can give you some sort of a picture of whether this is a keyword worth targeting, because if it has a low suggested bid, that means that it's not necessarily a very specific term, and it's not a very competitive. It doesn't have a lot of pages on there that may be profitable for a business. But you can look for different opportunities by seeing if the suggested bid is high and the competition is low. That means maybe it's a very profitable topic that doesn't have very much competition yet, and you could maybe target that a little bit more easily. So when you are looking at these keywords, as I mentioned, if something is a little bit more vague, like these, like a term as simple as sleeping bags, that might not return. That might have a lot of searches, and it might give you that 27,000 number, which sounds great. You might want to rank for sleeping bags, but that's not a very specific topic. People are actually searching for much more specific things. So while those fathead terms, as we call them, get a lot of volume, as you add words, they become long tail keywords, such as how to choose a warm weather sleeping bag. That's a long tail keyword that is probably very actionable. That's we would say that has user intent that's probably not high in the funnel. So they're not in the awareness phase. They want to learn how to choose a sleeping bag right now. So that's the kind of topic that you might write a blog about, something like that, to get new customers. And the consideration things there are relevancy. When you're choosing a keyword, is it relevant to your business? Is the keyword itself going to actually generate what you want it to? So those are the different areas you can consider. Then once you want to expand that list, you've chosen sleeping bags as your subjects who want to find the more specific data and choose what you should look for, you can use the keyword ideas feature in Google AdWords Keyword Planner. You click get ideas and it'll spit out a bunch of other terms that you might consider, such as you can see in this list there's something called La Fuma sleeping bags. I'm going to assume that that's a name brand, which is why it might have high competition, but it doesn't have very high volume. But then there's very subject matter focused ones like cold weather sleeping bags, warm sleeping bags, winter sleeping bags, adult sleeping bags, Batman sleeping bags. But you can see the different volumes there, and think of if you're not selling a Batman sleeping bag, you probably don't care what the search volume is there. But if you are, you're going to be very concerned about that search volume and how you can target it and rank for that potentially. So we're going to go with cold weather, or I'm just going to highlight a few things here. Sorry about that. But you can see the differences even in the monthly search volume and how just changing one single word can change that volume. Warm sleeping bag, winter sleeping bag, and cold weather sleeping bag are really about the same type of product, but you probably want to target that cold weather sleeping bag because it just so happens that's how more users are searching, and you can see that actually warm sleeping bags has a higher suggested bid, so maybe more people are actually buying when they're searching for warm weather sleeping bags than when they're searching for cold weather sleeping bags. So these are some different things to consider, but when you're getting started, it's just good to get these on a list as you start working on content, and it helps you when you're starting to target things and write title tags and produce content. So applying this keyword research. So as I just mentioned, the page title tag and heading tags and creating content, these are the elements where you really start to think about how you put a keyword on a page. So over the past few years, Google has been sort of cracking down on nefarious practices with keywords, where I think 5 to 10 years ago, people would actually stuff their page copy with 1 pixel tall copy that with thousands of iterations of a single keyword, and it would actually work. So it wouldn't necessarily disrupt your user experience, but it would help them rank. But now they get penalties for that type of practice. So now we have a few basic elements. It's like Google's the teacher and is teaching us the rules of how they're going to grade us on our page. So one good metaphor is your site how far is your site from perfect? And if your site has everything on page that is according to Google's guidelines, you're much closer to perfect and more likely to rank. So that's where these guidelines come from. So the page title goes into the head tag of your code. If you're using something like a blog, you're going to be able to edit the page title and meta description, which is sort of like a couple sentences or a sentence or two that is like a little bit of a call to action when you're looking at a search results page. And then headline tags on your site, on your web page should have one H1, and that's the primary element where the keyword should be. So the page title and the heading tag are where you want your primary keyword to live, and then all these supporting pieces, meta description and on-page content, you shouldn't try to just stuff full of keywords. You should try to use natural language and just describe the subject in detail. So here's what it looks like when REI is targeting their one particular product. They have a REI Polar Pod sleeping bag, one individual product. That's their keyword. They want to rank for REI Polar Pod sleeping bag. That's a brand name. This is a product page. So that's what they've chosen. They have in the meta description a short description of the page to entice you to click. So that's basically this purpose. This actually isn't a ranking factor. So if you have the keyword in there, it's really, it might be bolded. Google does that from time to time to match your search query, but it doesn't actually help your page rank. It's just to help you click, to help entice the searchers to click on this link. So now we're looking at the on-page elements, the H1 heading. It still has that keyword in there, short and sweet. And then you have the page copy and the product page. There's not much to go with, but they still have a very descriptive paragraph. This is actually very similar to that meta description, which is totally fine when it's a short description for a product page. And then another element that's important is alt image text. Like this is an image of that Polar Pod sleeping bag, so they'll probably add alt image text to give it that label. The alt text is actually used by accessibility readers for people with vision impairment, so that their page readers can read through the page and tell them about the content on a web page. So if they're looking at this page, it'll read that this is an image of the sleeping bag in dark fog daybreak color or something, like whatever that color scheme is. So give them a little bit more information about that. And that actually is used, that image could be pulled if you have the correct alt tag. That could rank in the image search for sleeping bags. If you want to find a really cool looking sleeping bag in dark fog and daybreak, this might be one that pops up. So now, how do we do some more keyword research and how do we apply it? That's what we've just covered. And now we're going to move a little bit more into using that, applying it through content marketing, using that work and moving forward. So what is content strategy? It's a lot of research to understand your user. So you probably have a lot of different users, but you want to really think about those people and what their habits are, what their interests are, and how you can solve those problems that they have, so that your content can be found by them more easily, and then you can have a customer relationship with them over the long term. So that's what content strategy, the goal is. So how do you understand your user? You need to research their demographic information. Camping is a good subject because you probably have a lot of different type of camping customers. So people who like to go camping in the winter, people who like to go camping in the summer, and people who like to drive really far or not drive very far. Things like this. You can research these things. There's research reports out there. There's tons of companies that probably try to sell you things, and you can do a lot of primary research on your own. But there's lots of ways to find out these little things that help you identify traits about your consumer. And then once you find all these little things, you can sort of create this character that actually you can try to target in your marketing. So you can use all these different factors to describe a story about your camping consumer. This is really important when you're getting started with content marketing. So you're actually you don't have a vague target. You have some really some specific things to target. So once you've identified a persona or a few, it's good to have more than one, because you probably have more than one type of buyer. You can start to map out how they get from awareness of your product category to actually becoming a customer and becoming a loyal customer. So the buying cycle is, it's not necessarily a funnel. In online marketing these days, it's really a cycle. You have to optimize to try to attract more customers and attract them in different ways and at different steps. So at awareness stage, that's where a little bit more of those more general keywords come in. They're doing research about like traveling to Minnesota or something, that a general keyword to be aware of what they need. And then they start to go deeper, like, okay, well, I want to come to St. Paul, Minnesota, so that they're in step 2 potentially. And then where should I stay or where can I go camping near St. Paul, Minnesota, to keep with the camping analogy. So they're in consideration. So why should I stay at a campground here or there? So different, more information like that weather page we looked at earlier, stuff like that to help the customer decide, and then take the steps to purchase. So each of these steps, and then into loyalty, you can target them in different ways using keywords. You can target them with content. So that's where we are now. It's good to look at your website and decide what types of content you have that apply to your different personas. Do a little bit of an inventory. So you probably have a website already. You might have a lot of content, might not have very much content, but you can do this analysis once you have identified those personas and sort of see, am I actually serving these users at different steps in the funnel with content that's useful. So you can do this with a couple of different tools. You create a big Excel sheet with your casual camper persona and see, is this page on my website, is each of the pages on my website appealing to them at this different stage. And you can see in this little graphic, it's showing us that this one page, the second page in the top spreadsheet, actually addresses consideration and purchase intent. So you can map these out, add them up, and then at the bottom here you can see that you have two personas, and you can see that maybe you need more content to address the extreme camper's interest phase. So maybe you should do that, but maybe not. Maybe you don't have enough content, or your business doesn't really serve the extreme camper. Maybe you're focused on that casual camper. That's okay. A lot of businesses, you should have a target audience, and if an extreme camper is in your audience, maybe you shouldn't have any content that appeals to them. So you can identify this on your own. What are the decision factors into becoming a customer of yours, and you can use this type of thing to evaluate your website and inform content development. So one of the most popular forms of content development is blogging, and creating a bunch of blogs is a lot of work, and it is very helpful to to plan this out ahead of time, using keyword research, using personas, and start at a schedule that works for your business with the resources you have, so you can create appropriate content that fits those different buying cycle elements. So there's different types of content that you might use. You can create videos, you can create all these interactive pieces, but we're going to focus here on a blog. And while a blog can house all these types of content, it's important to think about what your customer needs are, and what's going to help them at each stage in that cycle. So you should consider a blog if you have an engaged community around your industry, and I'd say most industries have a community of some kind. It's pretty rare if you have zero community. You can always, if you have a target customer in your business, you can find some content that will appeal to them in some way. So you have to plan this out, and then you have to dedicate resources to creating that content. So you can use keyword research to help you find that great content and build the content that they need. And one tool that can help here is the content calendar. You map out a schedule so that your resources, your blog resources and your content production resources have time to do the work and have time to do it right. And you keep yourself accountable for your work. We do this internally with our own blog to have a content calendar. Taylor does a great job keeping everybody on schedule, keeping them accountable for what they've said they were going to do, so that we don't end up with a bunch of blogs published on a single day. We end up with a steady stream of content, so that our customers are served in the ways that we need them to be. Again, keyword research is here. It helps you come up with concepts. It helps you come up with, again, with that monthly volume, you can think that, hey, I need to write some more stuff about sleeping bags before March comes around, because that's when people are going to start searching. So stuff like that. Now, once you map it out, you can have something like this, which has dates on it, has authors, you can add editors in here. You can map the type of content that you have, the persona audience that you're targeting with this content, and then you can keep track of the keyword here. And then you could even layer in actual performance at some level over time into some sort of dashboard. You could pull the traffic from your analytics service and really keep track of these things. And that's sort of getting to content maturity. So that's what we're working toward here. So once you publish that content on a good schedule, you need to promote it. So this is still part of content marketing, is going into social media and email and paid search. You need to promote it in some way. Of course, it used to be a little easier to just publish stuff on Facebook and your likers would see it. Now even social media is a paid channel, so you need to get get that in line in your internal marketing, so you can fight for some budget and the right resources to get production out of your marketing and content efforts. So some kinds of content might need different promotion than others. It's pretty important to target the personas with this practice. So maybe you've decided that your audience, in this case, maybe parents who are interested with kids interested in outdoor activities. Maybe this type of article doesn't need to be promoted on Pinterest. Maybe it's just some other type of image or whatever that fits better with Pinterest. That's why the Pinterest logo is X'd out in the middle. It's because they've decided to push this to Facebook and Twitter only, because that's where this persona is most active, or that's what they've decided. So this is covering a lot. I know it is, going from deciding on personas and mapping them to the buying cycle, creating a content inventory and working on your current website, what you have, what you don't, and then starting to actually work on that stuff, keeping it on a schedule, and mapped to your goals, and then promoting it and getting people to come to find it, and start actually reaping the benefits of content marketing. So this all falls into the same sort of the same subject of SEO, because we start with, is your website designed well for users to navigate through? Is it designed well for search engines to find it and index it properly? And then, are you targeting the right content so they'll actually rank it for popular subjects, popular keywords? And then continuing with the effort. It is a continuous effort to keep your content strategy and content marketing on track. So that's what I hope I've conveyed properly to you today. This SEO pyramid is a lot of work to keep stable and in good shape. And of course, at 3D, we measure everything and use that measurement to inform optimizations. And so it's a cycle. That's what we try to show to our clients. So thank you for listening. Now I'll be here to answer some questions. So here's Taylor to take over.
Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate you leading today's webinar. I know I'm walking away learning a few new things on the topic. I also want to mention, while people enter some questions in there, we did receive some questions throughout the presentation. We'll make sure that Andy gets towards those. But Andy has an offer out for people in the webinar today for a free SEO scan of their website. So if you're looking for Andy and his team to take a peek at your website, please do take advantage of that offer. It will be included in the link that we send out in the email that follows today's webinar. So please do take them up on that if you're interested. A couple of questions that came in. One was when you were talking about the hierarchy of websites. Obviously, everybody has one home page, but as you categorize stuff further down, is there a set number or a limit that you should have for your navigation bar just to kind of keep within that hierarchy that you were mentioning?
Yeah, there's definitely just sort of guidelines for the navigation. I think I mentioned just the number 7 is a big. It's just proven out by some user experience elements. It's better to have less than more in some cases, just to keep it focused and try to guide your users toward a subject matter. Like some of the sites we looked at, I think Parajas had a very simple navigation, but maybe you really do need that detail. Maybe you just want to maybe your users are looking for one specific thing, one product, and you can get them there right away in some other practice by adding some more specific navigational elements. So every site's different, but it's just better to keep it simple in your navigation.
Wonderful. One question that came up a little bit about a URL, but also a little bit about the hierarchy as well, is would you consider a breadcrumb header on each page a strategic link? We know that the breadcrumb would actually link up to the hierarchy on the site. So wondering what your recommendation would be on implementing a strategy similar to that.
I definitely like breadcrumb links. So breadcrumb links are, if you're not familiar, are just like a little user path, sort of like a click path through pages You find them a lot on shopping websites, e-commerce websites, to sort of show you which categories you're in. I think it's a little bit more for user experience to make you realize which section of the site you're in. It's not necessarily a high value internal link, but it is an internal link, so it's good to have those there. If you find yourself like clicking really deep, having a lot of subcategories, and you can see the breadcrumb path that you've traveled down, it's just, I think it's mostly a logical factor to help the user. It's not necessarily a link that will pass a ton of value. Internal links in general are not gonna make or break your SEO strategy, but breadcrumb links are definitely recommended for sites with a sort of a deep user path. So if there's a lot of clicks you have to take to get to content, that will help.
It's a great response. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about keyword research. You showed a lot of different tools out there. I'm guessing most of them were free because a lot of free tools exist for keyword research. But what would be a tip on helping people get started? Where do you get started with keyword research, or what would be a tip or a trick that you have for people listening?
Sure. There's a lot of good things to start with. One thing we always use is called SEMrush. It's semrush.com. There's a paid version that gives you a little bit more data, but you can go there and put your website into their into the search box on their website, and they'll show you how many keywords your website is ranking for. And they have a database of 80 million keywords that gives you data on what their position is and if they are generally going to generate, if the website's generate, how much traffic it is likely to generate based on the positions of those keywords. That's a popular competitive research tool. So if you're looking at some of your competitors, which is something we didn't really talk about, is looking at the rest of your industry. We looked at REI and Joe's, for instance, as camping retailers, but you can do something like that to get started with keyword research. See what your competitors are ranking for. Think and evaluate if you are if you have content that maybe you need to build up to compete better on some of those terms, or just give yourself ideas. SEMrush is a great place to start. You can also use the Google, if you're using Google Chrome, as I always do, they have the Google Suggest. If you start typing in a query, or on google.com, there's if you start typing in a keyword, it'll give you suggestions below that drop down, and that's a good way to just sort of think of new ideas, better ways to phrase this or that, because they're going to give you common queries. While granted, some of that is going to be based on your individual user data, so I would suggest using an incognito tab. If you haven't used that before, it's a way to use the browser where it isn't factoring in any of your user data, so you're not going to get served as many individual ads. Like, let's say you recently got engaged and you're using an incognito tab, it's not going to give you a bunch of engagement ring ads out of nowhere, but so it's also not going to add a bunch of the queries that you already made on Google into that suggested box. So that's a good place to go and see what some popular terms are related to your subject. So you can go there and type in your product name, type in your industry category or something like that, and get some new ideas.
It's a great reminder to use the incognito tab just to remove people's personal search queries they might have. We have time for one more question here, and this is one that is coming up, I think, a little bit more often, but as we see market share increase with people using Bing versus Google, are there different strategies that people need to consider to rank on Bing that they might do for Google?
That's a great point. There's lots of resources you can do once you start getting into SEO and content marketing. Both Google and Bing provide tools that you can use, free tools that you can register your website. So they're both called Bing Webmaster Tools, and it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, but they have Search Console now, basically renamed it. But Bing actually sort of led the charge in providing a lot of information about how they index sites and how you can improve the standing within Bing. I think Bing still follows, it is still the follower in the industry, so Google is still setting the standard in terms of ranking best practices and how to optimize your sites. But it's good to get your site registered in both of those webmaster tools, and then internationally they have webmaster tools for like if you're in China, it's Baidu, and if you're in Russia, it's Yandex, stuff like that. So it depends on your geographic area on what the searcher's most common search engine is going to be. But back to the question, it's best to just keep up with what Google's doing, but also keep an eye on those webmaster tools, because you can see how many pages on your site are indexed very easily by looking in there, seeing if they've found any errors while they're crawling your site. So this is a little bit more advanced SEO stuff, but if you're curious, you can go in there and start poking around, and they do give you some useful information, such as I recently use it to help tag the name, address, and phone number on a website. They have a tool that you can just go visit. It'll pull up your website within its tool, and you can highlight text on the page, and it'll give you the code that you need to paste into your website's back end to make that part of your content more easily accessible and readable to search engines like both Bing and Google.
Wonderful. It's a question that we continue to get, and a good response for that. So I'd like to thank you for your time today, Andy. Really appreciate you leading today's presentation. I want to thank everyone for attending today. Again, there will be an email with some additional resources that will follow this. It'll have a link to today's recording, also an offer for Andy and his team to take a peek at your website to see if there's any ways that they might be able to give you some more SEO tips on what you're doing. So thank you again, Andy. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate the presentation today.
All right, thanks everybody. I appreciate you taking the time for joining me today. Have a good one.